In this tutorial, I'm going to talk about externality cost, normally caused by pollution by industries, reducing their pollution cleanup cost by spilling their cost over to society. So let's first talk about production cost. When somebody is producing something, whether it is an industry or an individual in their garage, production cost usually consists of raw material plus usually some energy to process things, utilities, plus you usually have labor, plus some waste disposal. And private firms usually try to do the waste disposal at the lowest cost possible, low cost option. So they would just simply for example, let's say it's a paint industry and it wants to dump their waste somewhere rather than reducing the waste production, they can just dump it to a river. Let's say dump to river. If the case is about a paint industry. So they choose the option of paint getting dumped into river. So this would be their private cost. They would pick up the cost of moving it from their factory into the river and dumping it. That operation cost them something, but it probably cost them less. But they also cost the external party. There's an externality cost to the society. By dumping it into the river, the externality cost may be the river pollution, which results in perhaps loss of fish, maybe water quality issues, and the beauty of the river is worth something and we're losing all of that. This is additional cost of producing this material, but we never understand that because private firm only pays for this dumping to river cost, but not this cost, because this cost is external to the public. So if you think about what is the cost of real production is, production cost is actually should be equal to private cost plus the externality cost. If we can somehow transfer this externality cost to the private industry to make them internalize the cost, then the cost of production will go up. And what would that do to actual production? So if we want to just take our typical aggregate demand versus, not aggregate demand, just for that particular product, supply versus demand curve. If this is the price and this is the quantity, if this is the demand curve, and if this is the supply curve, and the market is probably, the private industry only recognizes the private cost. So that would be their supply line, just considering only the cost to themselves, but not the cost they're costing the society. So they may be producing somewhere here, say a quantity 1, at a cost of, I don't know, say $100. So cost of production of all this raw material and all of this cost them, say, $100 there. But there's also a cost involved in damaging the beauty, in the water quality, loss of river. Let's say that's about $20. So the real cost to the society should be at a production of Q1, which they're doing here, should be really $100 plus $20. So it should be $120. Right? So we should actually add up that extra $20, the externality cost that private industry is not picking up. So let's say that's here is another 20 bucks. And if you add that, the supply of that should really cost this much money, not this much. So at every production point, the cost need to be about $20 more. So if you add that, the supply line would actually look something like this. So at this higher cost of supply, so supply cost shifted left, at this higher cost, the production would actually reduce from here to here. So the market would clear at this point to a lower quantity. So Q2 now would be lower than Q1. So this is the efficient production for the market as society. But market would actually clear here if we don't take the externality cost and internalize that to the businesses. So one way to internalize that would be just add another $20 extra tax to the production facility for the pollution. And then they can choose to pollute and pay the $20, and then in turn they charge the society back, or they can use some other method to reduce their pollution and bring the supply curve even lower. Now let's take an example of how can we take the externality cost and internalize it by taxing the pollution. For example, let's say it's a paint industry and firm A and firm B are basically dumping their waste into river, and firm A can dump their waste into the river fairly easily. But if they want to stop that, they have to basically do something in their factory to reduce the pollution. That would cost them $100 a ton. For firm B to reduce their waste disposal to completely to a zero, let's say, it would cost them $400 a ton. So they have an option of dumping it into the river or pay $100 a ton and clean it up in their own factory at firm A, and firm B can do it at $400 a ton. As long as they can do it for cheaper than this by dumping it into the river, they would continue to dump it into the river. So one way the government can make them reduce the pollution would be that they can tax them, and they can also regulate them. So for example, firm A, let's say, is producing about 4 tons of waste today. Okay, this is the current situation. And let's say firm B is producing about 5 tons. The society is basically seeing a pollution of 9 tons of pollution right now. But let's say our intent is to drop this pollution to no more than 5 tons maximum pollution. So we could just target, maybe we can target a total of 4 ton pollution reduction as a government. So we could do that saying, hey, fair is fair. We say firm A should do 2 tons and firm B should do 2 tons each. If we propose that as a regulation, the cost to the society of reducing that pollution would be firm A will do it for 2 tons at a cost of $100. It'll cost $200 to the society because they'll pass it on to the society. Firm B will clean up their pollution at a cost of, because they've been told they have to reduce 2 tons, so they will reduce 2 tons at a cost of $400 each. This is $100 a ton, $400 a ton. So that would cost them $800 in total. So total it will cost to the society $1,000 to reduce 4 tons. Or cost of pollution reduction would be $1,000 by 4 tons, or $250 per ton. This is the cost to society. But can we do this in a better way? Well, perhaps we can. We could simply just tax the polluting parties, firm A and firm B, and then we can tell them, how about I set a tax that would bring the best pollution reduction at the lowest cost to the society. So we want to reduce the cost to the society and yet clean up the pollution. So if our target is to reduce at least 4, how can we do that? Well, I can set the tax rate, for example, set the tax rate at pollution tax rate, right? This is pollution tax rate. If I set it at $150 per ton, what would firm A do? Firm A would say, do I want to spend $100 a ton in cleanup, or do I want to pay a tax of $150 a ton, right? So they would say, this is cheaper, so I'm going to choose $100 a ton and I'm going to do cleanup, right? So the firm A will do 4 tons at a cost of $100 for $400, right? Pollution. This is their pollution cleanup cost. They choose not to pay 4 times 150. That would be a lot more tax, so they would choose to clean up. Firm B would say, well, do I want to spend $400 a ton in cleanup, or do I want to pay a tax of $150 per ton? Well, they would say 400 is more than 150, so I want to choose 150 per ton. So they will just simply pay taxes. They'll pay tax of, they are polluting about 5 tons, right? So 5 tons times $150 per ton. So they would spend about $750 in taxes. They'll pay taxes, so they'll continue to pollute. However, the society would have lowered 4 tons. Now the pollution would be simply, the total pollution would be, A will produce 0, B would continue to produce the 5 for a total of 5 tons. 5 tons total pollution. And that was our target, right? This was our target. So we achieved our target at a cost of $400 pollution cost for 4 tons, or that's equal to a cost of $400 divided 4 tons, right? It's $100 a ton to the society. At a cost of $100 a ton, society did it now, as opposed to we were doing here at $250 a ton. So when we regulate them to do 2 and 2, it costs more, but if we leave the choice to them, but we just set up the tax rate appropriately so that the best cleanup guy or the lowest cost cleanup guy does the job, the higher cost person does not spend the money cleaning up because it costs the society a lot of money. So we end up with the lowest cost to the society. So you set the tax rate properly such that the lower cost pollution cleanup firm does the work and not B. If we set it at $550 of tax, even firm B will try to reduce it, but the cost will eventually be transferred to the society, which may be too high a cost for the benefit that people receive in terms of, river pollutions and things like that. So we probably do not want them to clean up at this cost. We want only the one who is the cheapest cost to do it.